how soft it is. And that is a good thing to say of a foggy morning on the Vineyard. The fog is part of the element in which we of the islands and coastal places will always live, and part of a heritage that goes back to the eons when all was sea.
It would have been Henry Beetle Hough's 100th birthday. You may have heard of him. He was the nationally known newspaper editor on Martha's Vineyard, who fought the good fight for the soul of his island for 60 years.
I'd like to begin by observing a moment of silence in memory of Henry Beetle Hough. He's the founder of the Sheriff's Meadow Foundation, and over there is the first land that started it, and isn't it beautiful?
There is a conservation movement that is enormously strong and powerful here and speaks with a very eloquent voice.
Richard Reston succeeded Hough as editor of the Vineyard Gazette nearly 20 years ago.
And it was Hough, in many ways, that started this by planting the seed of the Sheriff's Meadow Foundation.
Come on, Kelly.
It was the 1950s, and Henry Hough considered Sheriff's Meadow his meadow, where he took his collie on long contemplative walks.
Henry loved that pond. He walked around it 4 or 5 times a day.
Henry Hough's widow is Edie Blake.
He walked around the pond on his way to the Gazette office, which is over that way. And you've heard the story of when he thought it was going to be developed, how he saved it, then how he couldn't afford it and had to start the Sheriff's Meadow Foundation. They're the swans.
That's when it became everyone's meadow.
Oh my gosh, there are a lot of them.
A small and seemingly insignificant gift that became the cornerstone of a public trust managing 2,000 acres on sites scattered across the vineyard. But as large as that legacy is, it is not Mr. Hough's greatest gift to the island.
This is a famous old community paper. It's one of the few wonderful community papers left, I think, in America. You know, I came here from Washington and the Los Angeles Times and covering the White House and a foreign correspondent for many years, and I thought, you know, I don't really know much about small communities and community journalism and small papers.
Clearly the lead story is land bank.
Under Dick Reston, the Gazette has lost none of its combative spirit.
Henry was very important to me. We had about 10 years together. He really taught me about the spirit of this place and the role of the newspaper in the sense of the protection of the character of Martha's Vineyard.
I think it looks like a good page.
Well into his 80s and still writing a decade ago, we asked Henry Hough to read some of his essays for us.
A piece of land or a bit of scenery does not need to be a Grand Canyon or a garden of the gods or a redwood forest to be worth preserving. Most of us haven't sufficiently realized that. It is important to set aside preserves, not always great ones, not always far off among mountains, lakes, or deserts, not always superlative in grandeur or traditional beauty. Does anyone ask what is it good for? It does not have to be good for something. It is good.
It is easier as an island community, I think, to realize that the resources of a community like this can be easily overrun and destroyed and ruined. Once it is gone, you can't just on an island run down the road to the next town or the next county.
There are no fast food restaurants, no stoplights, no 4-lane highways on Martha's Vineyard. But there have been constant, sometimes savage battles with those who would change all that.
Yeah, I think there's been a spirit of conservation, of protection, of trying to define what sets this community apart from most mainland communities. And trying to recognize, which I think most newspapers do not do, trying to hold up for the audience what is worth preserving, What is this natural world around us?
If you see a path through the woods or over a rocky brambled hill or at the top of a bluff along shore, it is probably an old one. For we live in a society that does not go afoot.
There is a lot of Henry Hough and the spirit and the character of the paper. A lot of Henry Hough left in this newspaper. He may not have gone beyond the boundaries of Martha's Vineyard often, but his mind had really traveled the world and defined a philosophy that was terribly important to this place.
The Vineyard Gazette celebrated its 150th birthday this year. Feisty as ever, it has more subscribers, 13,000, than the island has year-round residents. Dick Reston learned early on, when McDonald's tried to open a fast food restaurant here, that his readers can be a force to be reckoned with.
It's kind of funny. The McDonald's battle, which is still a great symbol around here, for Henry Hough and for Reston, our first sort of big cooperative editorial battle. And I remember at the end of this, I got a call from the chairman of the board of McDonald's from Chicago saying, in effect, what the hell have you people stirred up in that community? And obviously the board felt all kinds of pressure coming from the seasonal audience here, seasonal residents and others. And finally he said, listen, we have decided we want no part of the Vineyard, so just relax.
That's going to be a great story.
Well, relax,
Can't wait.
maybe. But there are always new battles just over the horizon. If Henry Hough were alive today, what would he and Dick Reston be talking about?
We would be talking about what we were talking about when he left us. We would be talking about how on earth do we manage the kind of growth pressures that Martha's Vineyard faces today.
On behalf of all the people who hold him dear to their hearts, I dedicate this bunch in his memory.
Henry was a humble man, but there were two things he was very proud of. One was keeping McDonald's off the island, and number two was saving this pond. And his last words to me were, Edie, take care of Sheriff's Meadow.
The mainland is all right in its way, but its way is necessarily imperfect. Only an island has a shoreline that never ends, and it is yet a present fact rather than a distant understanding. Only an island has the sea intimacy and the level, friendly gaze of a really wise horizon.